The Mario Rosenstock Podcast with On Ice, Ireland's premium ice skating experience, where winter memories are made. Visit onice.ie.
GoLoud. Sounds better with us.
Coming up on this episode of the Mario Rosenstock Podcast.
I went for a walk in the corridor and I bumped into this big guy who was Bobby Keys, who played the saxophone with the Rolling Stones. He was from Texas. He goes, "Hey, you're Irish, right?" I said, yeah. He said, "Yeah, I got to hear this shit, man." So, "Oh, yeah, come on in." So we came in. He sat down and he looked around and he said, "You got the hippie stick? Fresh out of the seminary." You know, I go, "Sorry, hello? The hippie stick?" "Oh, man," he says, "you can't mix an album without the hippie stick." He left the room.
Yeah, okay.
And he came back half an hour later with the hippie stick.
Or is the hippie stick just...
hippie stick.
Oh, sorry, smoking.
That was what he called.
Oh, I've never heard it called that before. So basically you just smoked your faces off for 2 days.
Well, we wouldn't go that far, Gard. And then through a fog, got into three-dimensional panning of the snare drum.
My guest on this episode of the podcast has had the most fascinating life. Eamon Carr has been a poet, a playwright, a sports writer, a copywriter in an ad agency and an entertainment journalist. Oh, and he was also a founding member of one of Ireland's most unique and iconic bands, the Horslips. And if you're too young to remember the Horslips, maybe you'll remember the amazing guitar sample in Put 'Em Under Pressure. Put 'Em Under Pressure. Well, that was them, and sampled from a track called Darrig Doom. Eamon takes me right back to the start of the Horslips and into their heyday. It's a cracking story, real Dublin in the early 70s. But we also talk about life on the road as a musician and the rock and roll lifestyle. And we learn about some of the most interesting people that he has interviewed over his long career as a journalist, including a great story about an encounter with the late and great Jack Charlton. There's lots coming up in this one, folks.
We sold out Detroit in 4 hours.
My God.
Detroit. I mean, come on.
The home of Black Motown. And
all of that. Oh, it was wonderful. I was in the element. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
As I'm pulling the blinds closed, and it's around 5 a.m. in the morning, I see a man, I swear, jogging across the grass and into the shrubbery. It was Sting.
What's the story here?
And it took 18 years for that to resolve itself through the courts. 18 years. We just couldn't really promote anything or discuss anything or consider anything because we needed to get the ownership of this stuff back. So I got a number and I rang the number and it rang his house. Imagine, people don't believe this sort of stuff. And I said, what do you want?
He picked it up.
He picked it up. He picked up the phone.
What are you doing there? Eamon's new book is called Pure Gold, and it's full of brilliant stories about the greats he has interviewed, including Shane MacGowan, Byrne, Eartha Kitt, Sinead O'Connor, Jack Charlton, as I said, and many more. But first, listen, it's all about the presidential race, isn't it? Poor old Michael D. We'll miss him. We will miss him. And I hear he was packing up his goods at Áras an Uachtaráin there, and he had some surprise visitors. Listen to this.
14 years. This was our home, Sabina. The memories.
Oh, there's you with the Queen of England.
Look, me with President Byrne.
Where am I in that one, Michael D? I was there as well.
Am I supposed to know where you were, woman? Who's that?
Oh, that's Heather Humphreys. You know, in case she wins, I'll get it.
Heather Humphreys? What the Heather!
Michael D, love. I won't keep you long, love. I was just sent over here to do a few things.
Do you mind me asking what the measuring tape is about?
Just for the furnishings. Jesus, this is tacky.
Excuse me?
Anyway, Dermot Bannon's coming in over in a while, and I've got John Rocha. I'm on his waiting list. Did you hear that? No. It could be happy days, love, hey?
Well, best of luck anyway, Heather.
Yeah.
These campaigns are tricky enough, aren't they?
Oh, sure, the hell are. They were giving me all sorts of hassle about this whole orange order thing.
Oh, I heard that. I saw it, actually. I thought that was a bit of a low blow.
Oh, desperate stuff, hey. I've never been near a match in my life, hey.
No,
Sure, you know
of course
that.
not.
There's my phone.
Hang on. Confounded noise.
Jesus.
What?
Oh, sorry, I'll just take me bag here. Desperate. Hello? Oh, how are you, love? It's the hubby. I'm just up at the Áras there. I'll call you back. I got the curtains, yeah. Well, they're kind of an off orange. Okay, bye, love. Bye.
Curtains.
I'll head off, Michael D. I might see you in November, hey?
What curtains?
Oh, look at this one, Michael D. The Irish rugby team when they visited.
Oh, Devin Toner.
Oh, is that his little child?
That's me, woman.
Oh, right.
Who's that now?
Oh, that's Catherine Connolly for her appointment.
Oh, yes. A fellow anti-capitalist icon, Catherine Connolly. Como estás?
Mr. President, workers of the world unite.
Capital is dead labour.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
All men are equal.
Vive la revolution.
Cuba.
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 Cuba. Anyway, let's hope you do the business, Catherine?
As a socialist, business is a dirty word.
I agree. Let's hope you realise the dreams of the stricken proletariat.
Humility.
Yes.
Simplicity.
Yes.
Frugality.
Wonderful.
Yes.
So what are we thinking?
So I was thinking of a 24-carat gold ornate fireplace. You could fly them in from Saudi Arabia.
Go away.
And I saw this, look, these rugs, right? They're hand-stitched silk floated from Peru.
Gorgeous, but pricey.
Vive la revolution!
Oh, yes.
Bye-bye.
Vive la revolution. Bye-bye, Cuba. Oh, for God's sake, who's that now?
It's Jim Gavin, Michael D.
Right, I'll go out to him, for God. Jim, Chicky will to a vocal.
Yeah, whatever. Just on a bit of a scouting reconnaissance manoeuvre here.
Sorry, what do you mean by manoeuvre? I don't quite understand.
Well, when I was in the Defence Forces, we would often infiltrate other...
Yes, I've heard a lot about the Defence Forces. And who are these fellows, if you don't mind me
they're the
asking?
snipers.
Sir! Mr. President, sir!
Oh, good day to you.
They were talking to me.
You? Sorry, what is that monstrosity on my lawn?
That is a tank. As Commander-in-Chief of the Armed
A
Forces.
tank? On the lawns of the Horus?
Well-
It's destroying my petunias, excuse me! And what is that horrendous machine up there in the sky?
That is a drone to gather intelligence footage.
Drones are not allowed over Horus and Uachtaráin.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that.
I thought you were meant to be Chief Operating Officer of the Irish Aviation Authority, Jim.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing we can do about it now.
Well, then maybe I can do something.
What?
You, sniper fellow.
Sir!
Give me that joke.
Michael D, what are you doing? Don't! That drone cost...
Stick that in your ballot box. Is Michel Lamas. Mihol D. O'Higgin. Still, Uachtaráin Neherim. Good day.
Comedy every week on the Mario Rosenstock podcast. And can I say a very warm welcome to our new sponsors. They've been here before, but they're back again. On Ice. We had the pleasure of their company as sponsor this time last year, and we're delighted to be joined for the next couple of months to bring you the Mario Rosenstock podcast in association with On Ice into your podcast feed every week. And On Ice is Ireland's premium ice skating experience. It returns and is bringing back the magic of ice skating, and it is indeed magical, nationwide this festive season, with locations in Dundrum and Swords in Dublin, the Marina Market in Cork, as well as locations in Waterford and Limerick. Enjoy Ireland's #1 festive and family entertainment this Christmas. It's fresh, it's fun, it's athletic, you get out and about, you have a lovely red rosy cheeks after you come back, and it's really good fun, wholesome fun for all the family. Grab your tickets now at onice.ie. I'm going to be heading down there, I think in November, there's about 20 of us going down there, and I can't wait to get down there and experience the On Ice experience. So let's get straight to our special guest on this episode, Eamon Carr. Eamon has so many strings to his bow, but one of the biggest on that bow is the iconic, cultural, groundbreaking creation of the Horslips, the founding fathers of Celtic rock. So let's start there, shall we? Eamon, thanks again for joining me. Now, you were part of the Horslips, of course, and I'd love to explain the Horslips to people. So, the Horslips were Jim Lockhart, Barry Devlin, yourself, Charles O'Connor, and various others as well.
Well, John Feehan. I mean, initially when the band started, in fact, the band actually started because of a Waterford woman called Anya O'Connor.
Oh, the famous Anya O'Connor.
Yes.
Anya, beautiful Anya O'Connor. Who was
Anya.
Gabriel Byrne's girlfriend.
And had been a friend of mine before that, right?
Yeah.
So Anya came... Goodness, I'm going back a bit now, but anyway.
Anya O'Connor was a beautiful woman, very talented television presenter on RTE, but she was really brilliant.
She was wonderful. I met her in this sort of... I was with Tower Telephone, poetry reading and writing and running workshops and all this sort of carry on, and publishing little magazines. And Anya arrived in Ireland from San Francisco. She'd been in San Francisco. And it was late 60s. So she brought this whole sort of sense of what was happening in San Francisco.
Summer of Love and all that.
Summer of Love and all that. Now, this would have been around 69, I think, at this stage, maybe 70. So anyway, the two of us became friends, really good platonic friends. Went to a lot of theatre together. She came to poetry readings. I think we published some of her poems, as I recall. And anyway, then sort of I moved sideways with Horslips because we were already acting the maggot and having a bit of fun, and we were all friends. And I said it to Declan Sinnott, who was with me in Tara Telephone. I said, why don't you come down and see where we're at? And he said, I'll do that. So he came down, and that then became Horslips. But it just so happened that I bumped into Anya on Grafton Street. And she said, hey, listen, will Tara Telephone come out? I'm working as a researcher on a new programme on RTÉ television. And would you come out and do some stuff? And I said, oh, that'd be great. She said, it's an Irish language production, so it would have to be Oscailge. I said, all the stuff we're writing is in English. However, I have this other band called Horslips, you see. And she said, oh, Reeve, what is it? And I said, it's knowing the market. I said, it's folk rock. And she said, oh, excellent, will you come out on Sunday and do a little audition for Joe O'Donnell, the producer. We went out on the Sunday, so Declan came down, we sat around, played a few tunes and went out. And Joe said, yeah, that sounds great, but where's the electric? Will you be playing electric? We would like you to play electric. And of course, frankly, we hadn't got to that stage yet.
Yeah.
And we said, don't worry about that, the gears in the van, And he understood, but he gave us the thumbs up. And so we went away, and I thought it was a one-off show. In actual fact, it was a series of 6 Sunday night replacing the Dubliners on RTÉ on television.
Right. So you'd be the Horslips on TV.
So on we go on Sunday night after the news. And there was a sort of miscellany. There was a sort of a tenor and a harpist and a piano, whatever. And then we were the resident band. So we had to play two or maybe 3 numbers each week. So we said, what are we going to do?
So you had to start making numbers.
We have to go.
You started writing songs.
Get this together.
Jesus.
So off we went. And we went into a basement in Crow Street of Gallery Langlois, which sounds lovely, but the basement was just full of rubbish and the flotsam and jetsam of centuries and rats and what have you. And we started knocking out a few tunes and in electric modes. It was pure just experimentation. But once you sort of nailed one, you rehearse it like Billy O, and then it's sort of, you're hearing it in your sleep. Yeah. And we had 2 weeks. We went out and we did 2 numbers on the first show. And the following week, we went out and did another 2. And then we go straight back in from RTÉ back into the basement. I said, what are we going to do next week? I don't know. What about this?
Yeah.
Let's try it.
So you were like the Monkees in a way, the band, creating music for television shows in a way.
We were creating it for ourselves, essentially, and hoping that we could knock something out of it. But it really was was slightly off the wall.
It was must needs as well. So in the sense that like you were being forced by a time constraint to come up with music.
Oh yeah, totally. You just had to do it. And meanwhile, the Daniel Langlois Kennedy was upstairs doing his action painting, like Jackson Pollock. So it was all we were all feeding off each other.
Is this the Langlois, the U2 guy? YouTube?
No. Daniel Langlois is him. Yeah. No, this was another chap. I think he moved to Jersey or Guernsey or something subsequently. But he was an artist and he ran a gallery. Yeah. And he was really kind to let us use the basement. But he was upstairs working. So as it turns out then, we did this. We got away with it. We actually managed to come up with a few arrangements.
Sorry for interrupting you, Eamon. I think I know who you're talking about.
Daniel Langlois Kennedy.
I think I knew Langlois.
He would have worn a cravat.
No, I know. Hello, little boy. Hello.
That's the
Hello,
chap.
Mario Rosenstock. He lived with me.
You're kidding.
I lived with him.
You're kidding.
Jesus Christ. This is the most extraordinary coincidence that I didn't realise.
That's outrageous.
Longwa, we used to call him. Danny. Danny, we used to call him as well. My uncle Gabriel and Greg used to call him Longwa. And so basically we lived in Monkstown. And I had no home to live in because my folks were splitting up all the time. So I was living in my uncle's school. Basically, they had some rooms there and stuff like that. And basically, Longwa, who was a friend of my uncle's, lived there as well. And when I had no mother or father, basically, at the time, 13, 14 years of age and trying to go to school, he was my Mr. Belvedere. He was like this kind of house butler.
Yeah.
You can see him in that role, can you?
Yeah, absolutely.
He was this kind of house butler, and he'd have a cravat on, and he'd go,
come along now, Mr. Rosenstock. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. Time to get out of bed and get to school and do your stuff. And they're, okay, Danny, or Langlois, or whatever we used to call him. And I remember I lived with Langlois for about a year. This is hilarious.
That's astonishing.
Oh,
it's
my
outrageous.
God. And then, of course, you say Daniel Langlois Kennedy and the art thing and everything. And I remember then he was doing all this art and all this stuff. And Prince.
Yeah, and Prince.
Lithographs.
But at one point, we had played we recorded these 6 things on TV. We thought everybody would be sort of excited and delighted, but people didn't really pay much attention. And so we managed to start getting a couple of gigs at, school hops and what have you, tennis clubs and things. And initially, and I had said, or even actually slightly before that, I had said, look, lads, we really need to play a gig now. So, but we weren't equipped to play a gig because we hadn't a clue. We'd written maybe 2 tunes for 6 shows, and that was about it, about 15 tunes. And so my bright idea was that we would actually play a gig in the art gallery. See, because it was there. And all we had to do was plug in amplifiers and make it thematic.
Uh-huh.
And so it became an arty event.
Mm-hmm.
And we did a little poster called, oh my God, Portraits and Anthems.
Oh, yeah.
And put this around the place.
That name rings a bell, yeah.
And we performed on a Saturday afternoon in the gallery, and people just strolled in, had a listen, and went, oh yeah, and left again, or hung around, or whatever happened. It was sort of a happening, but weirdly, a chap from Polydor had popped in, you see, and about a week later we got a call, would you like to do a demo?
Yeah.
We'll pay for it for Polydor.
Great.
And so things started to roll on from there,
Yeah.
But,
So, I mean, for some of my younger listeners, the only maybe way you'd know the Horslips is this. And that song is called Darragh Doom.
That's it.
And Darragh Doom was made famous not only by the Horslips, but later made very, very famous by being sampled and played, indeed, for the Jack Charlton's Italia 90, Put 'Em Under Pressure. Ole, 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 ole. Tell me about Darragh Doom. When did it come? When was it created? Who created it? How was it created?
Oh, look, the simple story. We recorded that first album called Happy to Meet, Sorry to Part. We recorded in Ireland, although there were only 1 or 2 studios here, and they weren't really on a par with London, but we didn't want to go to London.
You mean the studios here weren't even technologically on a par?
In those days, there were 2 studios. There was Eamon Andrews and Trend.
Right,
and
remember Trend.
You get away with doing stuff in them, but they weren't great. They weren't the height of technology. They weren't at the
There was no Windmill Lane then. There was no Windmill Lane.
Oh
then
no! Windmill didn't come till the end of the 70s, and this was 71.
So right, if you were a hot band in Ireland, you wouldn't record here. You'd go away.
By and large, bands went away, and we decided we were only trying to find our feet essentially, but in the end we thought, we'd better do it on our own terms, so we should record here. So then, but what about the studios? Well, we can't go and live in bedsits in London. Well, that's not appealing. But we were avid readers of the music newspapers, the Enemy and the Melody Maker, and we were reading about the Rolling Stones having recorded an album in the south of France on their own mobile studio.
True.
And they were now back in London with their studio, and they had rented it or hired it to some other band. So we rang the Rolling Stones. And Ian Stewart, who was the piano player with the Rolling Stones, who didn't look like a member of the Rolling Stones, so they never had him in the photographs.
Right.
So they had him in the office, and he ran their office. And he was really cool. And he said, yeah, of course. Now, bands had stopped coming, English bands had stopped coming to Dublin then, just around then, because of the troubles in the north.
Yes.
But he had no problem. He said, yeah, sure, yeah, all right. Yeah, where do you want it? We have a house in Tipperary. We found a Longfield house, Bianconi's house. And, all right, yeah, okay, Tipperary it is. And who's producing it? Well, we thought we might do it ourselves. He said, well, what about Irish O'Duffy? We said, sorry, who? What? Alan O'Duffy, who worked in Olympic Studio in Byrne in London and had recorded with the Stones and Jimmy Page
and knew what he was doing.
Blind Faith and Eric Clapton. He said, what about, he's Irish. Oh, right, okay. So we rang him and he came over and said, yeah, great. And so, anyway, Ian Stewart of the Rolling Stones helped enormously.
You describe a very fraternal rock and roll world there where people are willing to help each other out.
Yeah, it was that amazing, actually. Yeah, no, I have plenty of regard. I never actually met him. I actually, there's a corollary to that. We went to mix the album in Byrne's, in the same studio that the Stones used. And so while we were mixing it on the first night, it was all a rush job, and I went for a walk in the corridor and I bumped into this big guy who was Bobby Keys, who played the saxophone with the Rolling Stones. He was from Texas. He goes, "Hey, you're Irish, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You're with Irish's band, Alan's band." Yeah. Yeah, I gotta hear this shit, man. So, yeah, come on in. So we came in. He sat down, and there was a fiddle playing, and of course he related to that. Just he was going, "Wow, I really like this, man." He looked around and he said, "You got the hippie stick?" Of course, we were fresh out of the seminary. We go, "Sorry, hello, the hippie stick." "Oh, man," he says, "you can't mix an album without the hippie stick." "Oh, right, okay." He left the room.
Yeah, okay.
And he came back half an hour later with the hippie stick.
Which is? The fuck?
And then through a fog, for the next 3 days, we mixed the album. And we got into three-dimensional panning of the snare drum.
Sorry, is the hippie stick just...
hippie stick.
Oh, sorry, smoking.
That was what he called.
Oh, I've never heard it called that before. So basically you just smoked your faces off for 3 days.
Well, we wouldn't go that far, Gard. But I think he was in the corner anyway, and with the hippie stick, and waving the hippie stick. And their fingerprints, the Rolling Stones fingerprints, are all over that first album.
Hilarious.
But you didn't ask about that. You asked about the second album.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we got that out, and it was a huge success in Dublin or in Ireland at the time.
The first album.
And Happy to Meet Sgt. Pardon. It was a die stamp sleeve that cost more than the album to produce because there were colour photos inside, and the cover represented Charles's concertina. And so it was die stamped like a concertina and all this sort of stuff. Great art work going on. And so that was released whatever Christmas of 72. And I think the big album that year, I think, was ABBA's Greatest Hits. So it was either Horslips or ABBA's Greatest Hits, and people were buying it. There was a bit of a vibe all of a sudden. And so when the thing slightly died down after Christmas, well, it didn't quite die down, but after Christmas, we suddenly went, what are we going to do next? Because we called it Happy to Meet, Sorry to Part, because we thought we might only be doing one album. And but we'd been fooling around earlier on. We'd been asked to do music for a stage production of The Towing that was planned as a one-off on a Sunday night in the Abbey, and it never happened. But we had been tootling away in the background for a few days. So I said, "Listen, is there anything lying around from that towing business?" And there wasn't really, but I said, because concept albums are in vogue, and as opposed to be just see these Irish folkies, maybe we should give this concept album lark a crack and try retelling the story. And that's not a bad idea. So we'll have a look at it. So anyway, so we started that. So I sort of mapped out. I knew the story from my childhood, so I mapped out the story, the narrative, and wrote a couple of tunes. They called Charlton about a bull to try and set the scene, explaining what was going on, and then there was Cullen's lament about killing his friend Ferdy, and but we needed, we really needed, I felt it needed a killer track, and lo and behold, Johnny Fien one day while we were sitting around getting ready for rehearsals, and just messing. And Johnny was doing some sort of like, I didn't know, he was doing exercises or something, fiddling around, doing little riffs quietly now. And I heard this thing. I said, "What was that, Johnny?" He said, "What?" He played something. I said, No, just earlier there you were doing something. And he went back, he went, da, da, da. I said, "What is that?" He said, "Oh, it's the March of the King of Laois." I said, "I know that tune, but you've done something." "Oh yeah, I flattened the fifth or whatever, some technical stuff." And I said, "Do it again." And I hammered out the floor, and he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Listen, can we utilise that? Can we write it? Can you and I write a song around that? He said, yeah, of course. I said, cool. So I said, right. So that was our Jumpin' Jack Flash.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
You know, and for me, the riff was like the Kinks, or, you know, well, it was a classic riff already, you know, and you couldn't go wrong with a classic riff. So anyway, so then it had to be Cullen, and you're going, Cullen. It was a difficult one to write in a song. So anyway, so there was, you know, it took a while, and in the end, the red hand and the red blood and the jar of this and that, and he was a sort of a crazy sort of character. And of course, I'd read all the Yeats stuff, and it's very important in Yeats' iconography. And so I used to go into the National Library and get out Yeats' papers and look at his doodles from his automatic drawings when he was in a trance and all that sort of stuff. That was great. Yeah. And I thought, there's more to this than meets the eye, you know. And so anyway, so he became Jarog Doom, the Red Death or the Red Doom or whatever it is. But the story is just a story. The lyric rather is just a lyric of braggadocio and with a little nod to Amergin and Muddy Waters, essentially.
Yeah.
That's
Now, we all know this tune, but did it capture the imagination at the time?
No,
it didn't.
Not straight away.
Yeah.
In fact, as a single, it was released as a single initially before the album, and it, you know, this is traditional, isn't it? In reviewing and critiques. I don't like the new direction. We don't like this noisy stuff. Yeah. We prefer, you know, diddly-eye or whatever, you know. Yeah. And I know, it didn't initially, but it was working live and people were getting off.
Were they?
Yeah.
So you could tell that you weren't wrong when you thought this was a good tune.
When you cranked it up live.
Yeah. And when did it then become part of, if you like, before 1990 and Big Jack? When did it? Had it become?
By then, but the album would have been released in the Toyne album. It was on the Toyne album, and that was released in 1973. And in the context of the album, people began to hear it, and because we've been playing it live, it sort of just became the big number.
Did it? So it became your Streets of No Name.
Yeah.
And Jumpin' Jack Flash.
Yeah. And that was the one. And so we sort of knew it hadn't. Oh, yeah, sorry. It actually became a hit in Germany.
Did it?
Yeah.
The Germans always come in for the Irish.
And they took us over there and Baden and Radio.
Yeah, we loved the Dubliners as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful. And that gave us a glimpse of a whole other world and a whole other lifestyle. And we're artists or musicians or long-haired musicians who might even be drunk. We're actually treated with a degree of respect. You know, it's fantastic.
Very interesting. What was the let's say the apex of your popularity? How good was it going? How well was it going?
It was curious. The first album was a sensation in Ireland. And it opened all sorts of doors, and promoters decided they wanted the band to play for them in ballrooms and all that sort of carry on. And that was all excellent. We were playing at places like the Stadium and so on. And Philip Lynott, Lizzie had gone to London at the start, and they had we came after them, and they had recorded a couple of albums, and things weren't going terribly well at that point. And they were in the studio recording a track one day, and Eric Bell, the guitar player, sort of like taking the piss, essentially, started to play Whiskey in the Jar, like Horslips, you see. Yeah. And they said, that's good, we'll knock that out. And that was meant to be a B-side, but the manager said, hey, that's a very good single, so let's make it an A-side. And the band didn't particularly want it, but it's a huge hit for them.
God, it was. I remember them playing it on. I remember seeing them playing it on Top of the Pops.
Oh, indeed.
It was a number one, I think.
But it rescued the band's career. It got them they were just ending.
So Whiskey in the Jar, is your point to me that Whiskey in the Jar was a parody almost of the Horslips?
Well, sort of, yeah. It was partly, partly. Banter, I think, might have been the idea. But anyway, it became what it became. Yeah. And it got them a new deal. And kick-started their entire career then from there on. And then, Philip's genius then really came to the fore, you know. But around that time, we did the Toyne then, the second album. And that was really, really well received in Britain. the London Times Album of the Year, all that sort of carry on.
Wow.
You know? And
Were you able to do big gigs over in England?
yeah, well, build up Arena at the time did a half-hour special on the band and so on. So there was something going on at the time. And so we worked our way through college gigs and then up through the bigger clubs into the public halls. And then there were 2 albums that followed that didn't perform as well. And then we regrouped and we recorded. We took 2 years. And during that 2 years, in fact, we recorded an album a year, essentially, you know. But during that 2 years, we recorded an acoustic album called Drive the Cold Winter Away, which has just been remastered and been re-released on vinyl this year. But in the meantime, we worked on an album called The Book of Invasions. And that became a very big record and charted in Britain and charted in the States. And while we had been getting traction in Germany on the back of the Toyn album and Jarrod Doom, suddenly America beckoned. And off we jolly well went and started touring there and did almost...
How long did you tour in America?
Well,
I mean,
in those days, I think it's probably still the same. You get a 90-day visa.
yeah. So you just knock the hell out of it for 3 months.
And then and if you're not working, it's costing you money because you're staying in motels or whatever, you know. So you had, you know.
And what was going across America like with the Horslips?
It was pretty much everything. It was insane. And all sorts. I mean, at the time, it was all sorts. You know, New York, Boston, you would expect, you know, the immigrant Irish weren't there at that point. You know, our generation hadn't, that was the 80s, you know. But we were getting sort of Irish Americans. But not, curiously, and this is an odd one, it certainly wasn't exclusively Irish American. The first 2 albums, Happy to Meet and The Toyn, had been distributed in America by Atlantic Records. So we were assigned to Atlantic Records at the time, with the Nestle Ertegun, Ahmed Ertegun's brother. And we didn't fully appreciate until we went back to America a few years later the amount of work they had put in promoting us.
Okay.
Because those 2 albums had serviced every college station in America, every alternative rock station in America. It certainly wasn't mainstream. So when we got back with the Book of Invasions, people would go, yeah, well, I've got the Toyn album, man, you know, and it was all that. And it was like, because they had been students and running the college station, and now they're on the commercial stations.
Yeah.
And they had bought into this in the way that they bought into English rock or English progressive rock.
Yeah.
So we found that we were a hit with students across America, which was very interesting. And places that you might think you expect a big audience, we didn't get it, and places that you wouldn't expect. You know, like we sold out Detroit in 4 hours.
My
you know.
God.
Detroit. I mean, come on.
The home of Black Motown. And
all of that. Oh, it was wonderful. I was in my element. It was fantastic. you know.
So was it a great trip and a great...
well, we were backwards and forwards and up and down and crisscross, and we did that for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then we were just totally exhausted. And we hadn't the savvy, to be fairly honest, to sort of say, lads, can we not slow this thing
Do you know
down?
what I think you need during those cases as well? I mean, you're the man, but I always think you need the Paul McGuinness figure. The character who is your manager, the 5th member of the band, that character who basically is just doing so much groundwork, laying the groundwork, making the contacts, the networks for you.
We had Paul McGuinness's mentor,
Did you?
a guy called Michael Deeney.
Yeah.
So you need to check this one, right? Michael and Paul had been promoting gigs in Dublin when Horslips started, right? And they were called Headland Action, and they put on gigs in the Mansion House and in the National Stadium, and Charles designed posters for them. And then Michael saw us, and they put on a 2-day festival in the RDS, and Horslips were a big hit at that, like a huge hit at the time. So Michael came back afterwards and went, we have a chat. And Michael was from Lurgan, and son of Dr. Deeney in Lurgan. He'd been educated in Magdalen College in Oxford. And Donald, his brother, the head of the arts Council in Northern Ireland, subsequently, latterly, and High Court judge. But at the time, it would have been a student in Trinity. But so Michael suggested that maybe he decided to manage the band. So essentially, Michael was the Andy Warhol of the Horslips scenario. He was behind the scenes. He played a blinder.
Oh, did he? Yeah.
I mean, he was the guy who got the deal with Atlantic Records.
He was doing his very best for you.
Oh, no, he did astonishing. And he toured with us.
It's so interesting when you talk to Tom Dunn, for example, about Something Happens.
Yeah.
And, they have great, brilliant tunes and everything. And then, but the endless sort of tiresome not stories, but the tiresome, inevitable struggle with America. This idea of just sleeping in vans and doing college circuits for years.
Yeah.
And then, the idea that, I remember saying, U2 did it, and Thomas would say, the way you two would have worked it, just worked beyond working themselves to the bone, gone to the next level.
Oh, no, indeed. And in fact,
but why did Horslips not become the next U2 then, for example?
Because we didn't have a singer.
Ah, okay.
It's probably that's well.
Yeah.
Maybe
so in other words,
we didn't have the song.
Yes, I understand what you mean.
But you needed a hit single.
Yeah.
Essentially, you need to go top 40. That's essentially what did it. And that's what did it for most bands. I mean, while we would have been doing that, over the 2-year period, 77, 78 into 79, I think. Another band from England, mind you, a 3-piece band. Again, easier to manage and, logistically on the road, were the Police.
Yeah.
And I knew the writing was on the wall when for Horslips. And indeed, sorry, not just for Horslips, for me, when I'd been partying, let's say, and in some motel somewhere, I think it might have been over somewhere around Colorado. Oh, God, I dread it now. But anyway, and...
Just say hippie stick.
I wanted to go to sleep, and I was pulling the flimsy curtains on the motel window. And because the light was daylight, as Bobby Womack said, daylight has caught me up again.
Yeah.
So as I'm pulling the blinds closed, and it's around 5 a.m. in the morning, I see a man, I swear, jogging across the grass and into the shrubbery. It was Sting.
What's the story here?
And I thought, oh no. I mean, we all know that Mick Jagger, always ran and did it,
Oh, your point being these guys were like athletes.
Well, the other two mightn't have been, but he certainly was.
Right.
Sting would be up bright and early and he would go for his morning run. Yeah. But I saw Sting going for his morning run when I was going to bed.
And you knew the writings on the wall.
And I said, this, the rock and roll that I envisaged is a different industry at this point.
Yeah.
So at that point I said, right, okay, I'm out of here.
Very funny.
Metaphorically, I didn't leave for another.
Very funny.
The band I didn't leave actually. The band just ended.
And the band just ended, and then of course music changed. I mean, it went from disco to new wave and then this kind of pop and then Stock Aitken, Waterman and all this. And music moves so fast. But then this dramatic thing happened where Derek Doom made this massive comeback. And of course, you probably would have thought nothing about this. This is a soccer song. Of course. Who gives a damn about it now? Soccer jingle.
Look, I knew how powerful the riff was and how powerful it had become.
Yeah. And Larry Mullen played the drums on it.
Traditionally and legendarily, it was played at every wedding in Ireland.
Yes.
Played at every wake in Ireland.
And Larry Mullen played the drums on it.
It was Larry's idea.
Larry's produced it, didn't he?
Yeah, it was Larry's idea. Yeah. And when I heard it, I went, oh, wow, that's really, the production is fantastic.
It is, yeah.
And I just thought, oh, that's really, and so clever, and having the jack thing at the start.
And the uilleann pipes is savage. The uilleann pipes in that song, when the uilleann pipes takes off, the hair's
back.
Is that Davy Spillane?
I think so.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Because when it goes off with the uilleann pipes, but when it goes off with the uilleann pipes with that, your hair's standing up in your arm.
Wonderful. So, no, I was absolutely delighted. I mean, thrilled. There was a sort of a slight fly in the ointment, though. When Horslips stopped in 1980, and we had recorded everything ourselves because we had started recording on that album, the first album on the Rolling Stones mobile. We had paid for that and then licensed it. So it was a sort of an inverted way of doing things. But we managed to continue doing that for every album. And so we had ownership of our recordings, our copyrights. And we hadn't signed up to a label, and they paid us. It was the other way around. But when we had broken up, we'd taken our eye off the ball. Charlton went to England, and Barry went off, and then Jim was out in North and so on. I discovered, in fact, that suddenly albums started appearing, and they were pretty shoddy sound and dodgy covers. Oh, what's this? So it turned out anyway that there was a company who started releasing Horslips product, as they call it in the business, and that had no right to, and we disputed it, and didn't have the master tapes, and were taking the quality was of cassettes and, you know, of vinyl and all this dreadful business. And it took 18 years for that to resolve itself through the courts. 18 years. So there was 18 years, in fact, when we were in Purda, you know, we just couldn't really promote anything or discuss anything or consider anything because we needed to get the ownership of this stuff back. And because it was the north of Ireland, it was British jurisdiction, and you're talking the 80s now, you know. So it was hairy enough. And I remember sitting in front of a judge in the north, and our barrister was standing up. I remember the judge saying, CD, what exactly is a CD? Oh, I mean, it's a mechanical device for the conveyance of audio sound. You mean like a gramophone? Yes, my lord, like a gramophone. And this was the level of it. And but that was in the 80s. It took us through the 90s, and then eventually, everything was proven correct, and we had our copyrights back. And at that point, then Dennis Desmond sort of put his head up and said, lads, you know, why don't you just do a gig?
My promoter.
Oh, yes, indeed.
He promotes me.
Dennis. And so there you go. And that was it.
Brilliant. I was fascinated by the whole era and that whole rock and roll, folk rock thing. There's such a Spinal Tap about it as well.
Oh, no, totally.
Folk rock.
Yeah, no, totally.
And the gnomes and the descending onto the stage.
Yeah, we didn't quite get to the gnomes scenario, but we weren't far off.
Yeah. But I also wanted to say, because you see, all you guys were interesting because, you know, you're all intelligent lads and you all worked in advertising, you're all well educated. Some of your music journalists. Barry, of course, is a screenwriter, and Jim Lockhart, a well-known RTE producer. And then yourself, madly interested in music writing and madly interested in boxing as well.
Boxing.
Yeah. And yesterday, of course, was the 50th.
And Renaissance art.
And Renaissance art. And yesterday, of course, was the 50th anniversary of the Thrilla in Manila.
Oh, yeah. Manila.
The Thrilla in Manila, Muhammad Ali and Joe Fraser in their third epic fight.
Outrageous.
But I wanted to tell people about your book, and your book is called Pure Gold because you're also a well-known journalist and you've also interviewed some very, very interesting people. And you conducted a series of interviews on cassette or gramophone over the years.
Cassette.
What is a cassette?
Try explaining that to people.
Yeah, exactly. And you interviewed people like Jack Charlton and Eartha Kitt, but you also interviewed the great dancer Rudolph Nureyev, the writer J.P. Donlevy, Shane MacGowan, and all sorts of interesting people. And they are in this book, and their words are in this book, and their actual words are in this book, and it's called Pure Gold, memorable conversations with remarkable people by Eamon Carr, himself a remarkable person, and lovely conversations. And I urge you to get it because I've been leafing through it, and it's one of those ones that you can't put down. And just when you think, you know, that one is over, then another one starts. And Jack Charlton, maybe one story from one of the things. What story do you like from?
I don't know. I mean, look, the weird thing is,
Jack. Well, why have we been talking about the thing? What about Jack? You had to sit down all day.
Oh yeah, well,
Jack.
you're a Jack man. Yeah.
What you doing?
That's it. Oh, bloody hell!
He's got a deep voice, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, he was tremendous. Look, I mean, I was asked to do this gig of a weekly interview, double page spread, Evening Herald. Michael Deneef was the editor, and he said, "Look, the format will be different." He said, "So you're going to have to really work on this because it'll be question and answer." I said, "All right, okay." So there won't be a lot of colour and puff copy and so on and so forth. I said, "All right, okay." I said, "I'm not really the man. I'm not cut out for that." He said, "No, you're the one to do it." So anyway, so that was it. I got the gig. And he said, "But look, make out a list because it's going to be difficult to get somebody every week." So I made out a list. And of course, at the time, it was 1989. 1989, my God. Jack Charlton was hot. So in other words, it was after Euro 88. So Jack was top of my list. And so I made a list with a bunch of names on it, and Jack was top of the list. So I thought, right, okay, maybe I'll just see if I can get Jack. So I got a number, and I rang the number, and it rang his house. Imagine, like, people don't believe this sort of stuff. And I said, what do you want?
He picked it up.
He picked it up. He picked up the phone.
What are you doing there?
And I said, well, Eamon Carr said, independent newspapers, Ireland, and I said, maybe do an interview with you. Well, effing hell, you're not good enough effing interviews with me over there. Effing this and effing that.
Yeah.
So, because I wanted to laugh, right, on one level, but on the other level, my heart sank because I went, holy God, what am I going to say? So I said, Jack, I don't want to talk to you about your team or your hamstrings or any of that stuff. I just want to talk to you about football and the lads you liked when you were growing up and, maybe fellas you like to play with. All right, come up to the hotel, see you Sunday. Good luck. Yeah. I went, hotel? What hotel? I wasn't a sports journalist. Yeah. And so anyway, off I went up to the airport and on the Sunday. And Jack comes down and, oh, yeah. Come in and have dinner. I said, this is my first big interview, I said, oh, no, Jack, I couldn't interview a man when he's eating his dinner. I'm thinking to myself here, Anyway, so Jack, bloody hell, you'll have your effing dinner. Oh, okay, Jack, okay. So I thought, God, how is this? This is impossible. I mean, he was going to be eating stuff and I'm going to have to try and talk to him. Yeah. So anyway, we went into the room. Some of the players were there already because it was a Sunday evening before a match on Wednesday against West Germany. That's how long ago it was, West Germany.
Oh, do you know what? And I think that West Germany game might have been possibly Liam Brady's last game.
Indeed.
For Ireland.
Indeed.
He pulled Liam Brady off the pitch.
Indeed.
Yeah.
But not only that, he told me during dinner.
Did he?
Yes.
I'm going to pull Liam off.
He said he's got a surprise coming.
No, he knew it.
Yeah.
The little bollocks.
I couldn't do anything with it.
The little bollocks.
I couldn't do anything with it, but I luxuriated in the knowledge.
Jesus.
Because I've been given a bit of a hard time by the guys in the sports department, you see, who he'll eat you alive. In other words, what are you? You old hippie, you're going up the interview, what do you know about football? Sorry, lads. Anyway, so... so anyway, I went in, sat down with seven setters.
Morris setters.
And so we asked about, he said, he looked around, he said, lads are still arriving, and he said, is Stan in yet? And Setter says, don't know, boss. And I said, yeah, he's outside in the bar. What? I said, no, he's with his parents. He's drinking orange juice. That's grand, yeah. Anyway, he said, all right. And I said, so I sort of wanted to try and establish a bridge because I So the Stockholm Syndrome vibe or something. I said, Jack, I said, remember that first match against Tunisia when he kicked the ball free from the Havelock Square corner. I remember the ball almost went out the gate at the dart, you see, the other corner. And I had been sitting behind them. I got tickets, and there was nobody at the match. It was an afternoon match. I was sitting behind them. And when Stan kicked that free, the ball went, it was a real GAA job, And the two boys looked at each other and they got up and were scratching their heads and nodding to each other. And that registered with me. And so he said, Yugoslavia. I said, sorry? Yugoslavia? I said, no, Tunisia. It was fucking Yugoslavia. I said, it was Tunisia. And then I said, oh shit, I'm having an argument. And I haven't even started the interview.
No, and you've already got on the wrong side.
And I said, oh, sorry, Jack, listen, sorry, what am I saying? You're the boss, Shane Mac, anybody knows it's you. Oh, you're all right, my lord. And, but I knew I was right. And so he looked at Setter's. I could tell from Setter's eyes as well, so it was cool. And he said, who was it? He said, the lad's right, boss. He said, have you got a tape recorder? It's in the bag there. Put it up. Yeah. So I had a tape recorder, a little Pro Walkman job with a 90-minute cassette. So I put it up and I ran out of tape. No 90 minutes later. Seriously, I got another 90.
And was he a good storyteller?
Oh,
yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, brilliant.
Yeah.
And look at just. I'd have gone to war with him, or for him, I mean, he was great.
Was he charismatic?
Yeah, he was fantastic.
Warm?
I interviewed him then subsequently. I interviewed him on 2 other occasions. Now, he was fine. But he was professionally nice, we weren't buddies or any of that stuff. On the other hand, I did have a few late night sessions with setters subsequently.
He had an aura though, didn't he, Jack? Apart from the fact that he was Jack.
No, he did.
He had a personal aura. He's a commanding man, a big man, very sure of himself.
The curious thing about him was, when I met him in person, he was younger looking and fresher looking than the image of that on TV or in...
Well, that would have been the cap and the
or
clothing.
in photos or any of that stuff. He was a younger guy. And he was sharp. He was really passionate. He was pragmatic. And I actually, I loved what they did.
And possibly smarter than he came across on TV as well.
Infinitely brighter.
Yeah.
And he knew his job. He knew his trade.
Yeah. Well, do you know what they say? They say, the kind of Klopp football derives all from Jack Charlton. Get in amongst them, hustle, get after that ball.
Totally. But he told me a story, and actually, I was thinking of this there recently, and it's not in that, so it mustn't have been in the interview that's in Pure Gold. It was probably in one of the subsequent interviews. But it was at, I forget now which of the clubs, it was at Sheffield Wednesday, Middlesbrough, or Newcastle. Anyway, he said, he was talking about his tactics, and he outlined the game, because I was doing devil's advocate, and he said, "Oh no, bloody blah, blah, blah." And he said, "Look, the game is simple. What is it about?" He said, "It's scoring goals. How do you score a goal?" He said, "You get your goalkeeper to kick it out, up into the edge of the area, get a lad to knock it down, get it in behind them, turn the defence, put it in the net." I'm sorry, he made it sound so simple. And I had trained a juvenile team, so I'm sort of, I could relate to what he was telling me. So anyway, so I thought, right, this, I love this. So anyway, one of the teams that he had gone to, he said, "Oh, we're having great difficulty," he says. But he said, I signed a lad, he said. Now, he mightn't have been a great footballer, he said, but I knew that he was the North East 100 yards champion. Brilliant.
Sprinted after the ball.
So we got this lad, had him out in the left wing, and somebody put the ball up, and you had to go, boom, he got a little hair, beat all the defenders, and then cut across with the ball, do that to get in, knock it in, and we're getting results.
Of course, and that's based on the idea, of course, that no player can run faster than the ball.
Yes.
So the ball is always faster.
Yeah.
So if you have a player who could just run after the ball, the fastest player will get the ball.
Yeah. And he had this lad in position.
Yeah.
And I mean, now I was saying, was that not on that first interview? It wasn't. I think it was in the second time I spoke to him. But no, I knew Jack was fantastic. I ran out of tape, but yeah, in the middle of it, up the Chippy story, he asked me. He said, "Look, is Chippy in yet or something?" No, he's coming later on. He'll be here soon or whatever. Setter said, and there was a bit of grunting. And I sensed something, but I wasn't sure what it was. And he sort of looked at me, and I knew he was about to say something. I actually reached over and turned off. Now, this was slightly dramatic on my part, but I wanted him to feel that he could trust me. So I reached over and I said, "Oh, geez, Jack, I'm not sure I should hear this, you see." And switched off the tape recorder. And he said, well, he's got a surprise coming. He said, he's got a surprise coming on Wednesday. Oh, yeah. Won't be good. And I said, right. And so, yeah, he was going to take him off. So then when we got over that little bit, I switched the tape back on. And, but there's no way. Look, supposing I had ran back into the newspaper and said, Liam Brady's going to be, he'd have left him on, Yeah. And then I wouldn't be trusted. I'd never get another interview.
Though. It was a bit interesting. Great scoop, but it was a pity because Brady could have played in that World Cup then,
Yes, yeah. But, we Well, you have to read, in between the lines, I think, in the Jack interview.
Exactly. Well, it's a lovely, I'm leafing through it at the moment. It's a lovely collection of interviews and it's called Pure Gold. And listen, thank you, Eamon, for telling me the wonderful story of the Horslips and a vivid picture of Dublin in the early 70s. Would you have been bumping into BP Fallon and stuff around then?
Indeed, yes. Yeah. BP, of course, I knew BP. Yeah. I first met BP in, 65 or 6. And we travelled together, and at the time, we formed a band, a fictional band, like pick your favourite team. And we picked a band, we formed a band that actually became Cream within 6 months.
Jesus.
And then Beep went to London, and I used to go and stay with Beep in London. And I had come back from Liverpool, where I had met the Liverpool scene poets, McGough and Henry and Brian Patton and those guys. And so I was inspired. This business. And then Beep says to me, he said, his brother Peter, younger brother Peter, was a poet, and would I bring Peter along? And so I brought Peter along, and Peter and I formed Tara Telephone and started publishing Capella, the Book of Invasions, and the broadsheet at Gallery Books.
Amazing.
Which actually then, when I left, Peter carries on as Gallery Press and made a wonderful success.
This is one of those conversations which I'm going to terminate now because I'm afraid to mention any name. Because if I mention any name to you in the world, you'll go, it's funny you should mention that. Because I actually started a band with him and then he met me and I met... So
I know, it's dreadful.
I'm not going to mention any more names.
No, don't. Please, stop.
Eamon Carr, Eamon Carr, you are a machine. You are out of control. You are unstoppable. And thank you for joining me on the Mario Rosenstock podcast.
Thank you.
Lovely.
And my thanks to Eamon Carr for coming in and telling me his fascinating story. And that is Pure Gold is his book, and it's out now and contains some fascinating interviews that Eamon conducted over the years. My thanks, of course, to On Ice, our brand new sponsor, here with us for a few months. We had the pleasure of their company as sponsor this time last year. Get out there, get down to onice.ie and grab your tickets now for a great, great winter festive experience. My thanks, of course, to you, the most important aspect of the programme. And don't forget, you can contact me personally, mariorosenstock@gmail.com. I read them all and get back to nearly all of them. I'm on tour at the moment as well. So I'm in Ennis for Friday and Saturday. They're both sold out. I'm in Cork next week at the Cork Opera House on Thursday the 9th and Saturday the 11th. And then Gaiety Theatre Dublin on the 16th, 17th and 18th. Hope to see some of you there. Make yourselves known to me if you're coming. And I'll point you out from the audience. Take care. See you same time, same place next week.
The Mario Rosenstock Podcast with On Ice, Ireland's premium ice skating experience, where winter memories are made. Visit onice.ie.
GoLoud. Sounds better with us.